Hi, Coach Oyama. I have a passion to help you improve, and I specialize in macro. And actually, I specialize in Lucio too. So, yeah, I'm very excited to do this VOD review. Lucio is my favorite, my personal favorite. But needless to say, this is only master, so I can't really talk about the high level stuff, which is like what I like doing because that's currently what I struggle with. But or let's quickly read this over. I didn't read it over yet. Here's my contact info and like some stuff that I've done before. All my coaching is for free. All you got to do is DM me. So yeah, here's my Discord if you don't have it from Spilo server, which I'm doing the review from. Okay, so this is currently an alt account that I have to practice only Lucio. I have a main account where I'm a Grandmaster 4 or 5 Ana. Perfect. That's exactly what I did. When I hit GM for the first time, I said, I only know how to play Ana. Let me learn how to play Lucio, and I made an alt account. I made a lot of mistakes in this game where my failed wall riding got me killed, or I can too ambitious and pay the price. I think you mean that like you overexerted your micro and then pay the price. Okay, there's a couple moments like when I got nano and walked there. What? Because I thought I could wall ride out. Oh, that's a banger of a sentence. When you got nano and walked into the blizzard, because, okay, you can tell that I'm new, but I would like if anyone could point out the moment I did good and the moments you did bad. Thanks. Okay, perfect. I'm the right person for you. That's a whiplash sentence. You got nanoed as a Lucio, then you wall rode into a blizzard because you could wall ride out. All right, that's pretty funny. Not gonna lie. Okay, you're BigMilk. Yeah, you're BigMilk. I'm looking at the wrong Lucio. That's like my horror story. That's like my nightmare. That I start a VOD review, do an entire 30-minute VOD review, and it's like I'm looking at the wrong person the entire time. It's just like, oh god. Or when I prep for VOD reviews, like on one-on-ones when I am talking with the person, and I watch the entire game from like 20-minute game from one person's perspective, and then I'm like, wait, this isn't even the right person. Oh. Okay, going in initially. Oh, very aggressive play. I like that boop. Oh my, disgusting. Oh, very nice speed there too. I think you have the general idea of how to play Lucio, right? From what I'm seeing so far. I think that, what is it? Just the mechanics, just the execution of it is going to be a bit harder. Initially, right off the bat, I'm not going to put this as like one of the main 3 points that I'm going to give you as a takeaway or actionable steps, but one thing is the mechanics are very important for Lucio because it enables you to better do like what you want to do. And sometimes the mechanics will like prevent you from doing what you want to do. Like here, like the mechanics would be like killing, and then it's just like, oh, I'm not in the right place to kill. Oh, you're in there. Yeah, kill him. But needless to say, the only way to get good at mechanics is one, practicing, but two, the most underrated one that not a lot of players do is study other players. And I mean, studying doesn't have to be studying, because you know, studying implies like school flashcards and stuff, but studying for me is like literally watching Frogger play, watching SK play. Subscribe to Frogger, Red Shell, SK, subscribe to FD God. There's so many good Lucio players where if you just watch their gameplay, it'll give you a better idea of like, you know, they're doing it. If I just do what they do, it's perfect. We win. So, yeah, all you got to do is do what they do, but you won't be able to do what they do if you don't know what they do. So, you know, watching content is a big part of getting better, in my opinion. And that's just not even just coaching content. A lot of like montages will help you out a lot, even though they kind of set your expectations unrealistically, like kind of like modern media, you know, like unrealistic body expectations, because that's all you see. If you see 6-packs all the time, if you see 5Ks all the time on Lucio, and you're like, why aren't I getting these 5Ks? And you end up feeding to get 5Ks. You know, it's a bit unrealistic, but you get the idea of how to get those 5Ks, and you see it now. So, needless to say. Talking about the decision making on Lucio, I think you have a really good decision making on Lucio. I'm just not gonna speak anymore. I think you have a general idea of the I'm sorry. One more. This is really funny, not gonna lie. Because you're playing so well before this. Oh, okay, I see what happened. Okay, so there were 3 things that were going on in your head. So 1, I'm nanoed. 2, there's a blizzard, so I have to account for that threat. But 3, last point and holding choke point and getting value out of this Torb Coom. Sussy. But you thought that if you boop the Mei off of point into this Torb thing, then they would have to use like way. Not necessarily that you're thinking this out, but you're like boop Mei into Torb Coom, so much value. Yes, you didn't execute it properly, and then you also didn't fail to address that the blizzard was more threatening, and you dying is worse than you getting this value of booping the Mei in because she still has cryo. So. On one hand, I like the risk taking. I love the risk taking, to be honest. I like the fact that you went for it, but now you know. Don't go for this again. When there's a blizzard, don't go in the blizzard. Otherwise, that would have been a pretty good play, not gonna lie. So I can tell that your mechanics, you have some good ideas. You have some really good ideas of what you're trying to do, but the mechanics just aren't there to like back it up. And so, I'm gonna say the oh, what are you? I was surprised by. Okay, watch out for your positioning here. On one hand, Reddit Lucioing-ish, kind of. There's an art to this where it's called drawing the enemy attention, but I'm just gonna call it Redditing because you can Reddit on Tracer, you can Reddit on Lucio, you can Reddit on Mei in the backline, you can Reddit on Sombra, you can Reddit on Soldier 76, and like either hard flank. Or the fact of just pull the enemy's team attention away from your win condition, and your win condition will get more value. Or like just your team in general, because if they're shooting at you, like 3 people are shooting at you right now, they're not shooting at your tank, and you got so much space here. So on one hand, you use wall riding for that. On the other hand, if this was top 500, you'd get capped instantly. So you know, it'll be a learning experience, and it'll be fun learning. But okay. Okay, very nice. Very nice. I like how you calm down your mechanics in the moments that, because like one big common mistake that I see on Lucio is people are like, wall ride, and then never stop to like breathe, aim, get a 4-shot melee boop, and then go back to wall ride, and then, you know, they don't know when to calm down and get value. Okay, one thing, don't stagger here. That's like one random small thing that's very important. Okay, yeah, very, very nice. On Lucio, it's also it's a wild place where you're like, am I staggering or can I get out? And then you end up accidentally staggering by dying while getting out, and that's real bad. Yeah, so here's a perfect example of your positioning where you're Redditing, and then you lose value because you were Redditing, because you drop down to half health and you amp for yourself. Realistically, this amp doesn't do too much for your team. Or actually, it got quite a bit of value. But it could have gotten so much more value if you didn't have to start it by amping yourself. Okay, yeah, and this is where Redditing catches up with you. You met the fine line of where's feeding and Redditing. Right there is feeding, and so now we know. With better mechanics, you can shove that line even farther down and procrastinate that line. But until then, until you learn some Lucio techs, which I'll show you some Lucio techs as part of mechanics afterwards. I feel like your movement in aim is pretty solid. It's just the getting used to being in air, because Lucio is very much in air, and there's a lot of things to do in air. Very nice wall riding, actually. Your rollouts are pretty good. But the in-fight mechanics, one overarching generalization for that always holds true in Lucio wall riding is never go in a straight line. Like if you're, of course you're always moving in straight lines because you can only move in one direction at once. You know what I mean? So like from a certain perspective, you're always in a straight line in a rollout. But if you can, you know, if the person's in front of you, move left to right. If the person's on your side, move straight back. That's like an overgeneralization, but I think you get what I mean. Because if you're like going into the enemy team at the beginning of this team fight here, right here, for them, this is a straight line. Whereas if you move a bit differently, okay, yeah, it's a bit sporadic, but you can do a lot better. Let's watch your movement from this third person perspective at 0.75. Because that guy could have capped you right there. He could have, like, if he was a bit better. And I always say play like the enemies are the best in the world. Because then you'll build habits and be the best in the world. Or the best that you can. So if you play like the enemies will hit those shots. Or play like the enemies. Assume that the enemies aren't just bad. And that's the reason why you're winning. you know, like, you can still assume that the enemies are going to hit all their shots and take 1v1s and justify 1v1s because you're overcoming them in your skill. But if you assume that they're not going to be bad and just whiff all their shots, which a lot of Lucio players do, including myself, that's like a fallacy to set yourself up for failure, because you're just going to build bad habits, being in bad places, doing bad things. You're going to be like, oh, they hit their shots. Oh, it's so unlucky. When in reality, you know, you get to top 500 and it's just like everyone hits their shots. Okay, I like the idea, but I think you forgot about the enemy team behind you. One thing, when you go for hero plays with boops, it's going to be like the window of opportunity is going to close really, really small the higher that you get. Because, you know, if you're in bronze, they wouldn't have killed you. But since you're in masters, they have eyes. They saw you just standing in the open there. And so you'll eventually get to the point where maybe your wall riding can... I think, honestly, that was like too hard of something to go for. But something like this, where you boot him out of the jump away from yourself and your second support, or your main support, or the main healer, flex support, vocabulary. Very good play. You know, it's a balancing. That last one where you were trying to boot him out of the jump so he couldn't disengage was not actually worth it, because if he jumps backwards and you just like slow speed into the enemy team, that would have been a decent play, to be honest. Okay. Oh, very nice. Oh, very nice. The mechanics here are nice, nice. Very beautiful. I like that. Let's go back to this play. Let me explain why I like this so much compared to your other engagements. One, it's in the chaos of the fight, so it's not pre-fight and it's not necessarily cleanup. It kind of is cleanup, but you're advancing the cleanup, and this is very good. You're wall riding around the Mei and using variations in your elevation to confuse the Mei. So even if she does see you, like, you know, you're in the air and you're doing stuff. You're not just standing still like you were earlier and like shooting them from the side, even though that's okay. Like, I'll talk about how to level up your gameplay even farther rather than standing still on a predictable target. If you listen to Arj, what he says, there are two types of targets that know that you're there and targets that don't know that you're there. That don't know that they're there, you can take your time. On targets that do know that you're there, you have to play differently. But that Mei didn't know that you were there, or like that pass, like in the Ana, didn't know that you were there, so you took your time. But there's ways that you can take your time and still be very mechanically advanced and not just like walk forward in a straight line and stand still. Or I'm gonna explain it now and show it to you later. If you can dive at them, the timing is kind of hard. You got to get used to it in muscle memory. But if you can dive at them, and at the apex of your dive, you're the easiest to hit, but that's like a split second where you have the advantage of you're more controlled on your mechanics than they are to hit you. And so anyone looking at you won't be able to hit you, but you're still in the, like, standing still, shooting a standing still target. Basically just maintaining slipperiness while hitting near guaranteed shots. Frogger and Red Shell do it very often. You won't see like FD God, because he's in places where, like, if you do that and dive in, usually you're just gonna die. Yeah, Red Shell, you'll see that very often too. So the reason why I know how to do this stuff is all because I looked at the players who were better than me. And okay, very nice. Look, you played for that freeze and sped it. I would say speed your Reaper though. You could get a bit closer to him, even though, like, you know, he's doing his thing and in danger and going to die. You know, you might as well squeeze a little bit more value. All right, be real time. All right, I didn't see how you died, but I already knew that team fight was going to end because your Reaper entered at the beginning of it. Honestly, sometimes in Overwatch, no matter what you do, it's more about, like, should I reset here or go in with my team? And if it's reset and you're wasting time, or like you're just waiting to reset, then there's nothing that you can do, and nothing in your decision making. We can talk about habits, but, like, you know, when you're in the gutter, you're in the gutter, and it's not your fault sometimes. Sometimes the only way out is getting out of the gutter, which, like, no matter how good of a Lucio player you are, or no matter how good of a player you are, unless you kill 5 and they turn their brains off, you just have to reset, and that was like that last fight. So, yeah, not to be, like, disrespectful, I'm on my phone. I just don't like skipping forward in VOD reviews, just in case there's, like, one random mistake where it's just like, okay, never, ever, ever, ever do that again. There's a couple of those that, like, show up sometimes. I feel like since you're a GM player, you can understand what comes after or what comes with high level macro. So, or what comes with higher level micro, in which you're able to think about decision making. Because right now, in this team fight compared to the first round, I can tell, I'm gonna call it fatigue. I also have a lot of fatigue while playing Lucio, or me as a player, I have a lot of fatigue playing games. But your decision making dramatically decreases as the rounds go by because you're more focused on your mechanics, and your mechanics also fatigue. Well, actually, I think your mechanics got a little bit better over the rounds, to be honest. But your decision making will fatigue, and I can tell because you're not thinking about speeding your tank here, whereas before on that first round you're thinking about speeding your tank. And that might be a map specific thing or a round specific thing here, where you're not sure how you can better provide value. But on Lucio, if you're playing Lucio, it's either yes, Lucio is a good pick and I could use my speed effectively, or no, I'm just kind of trolling and having fun. Which I'm very guilty of the second most. And I mean, to be fair, sometimes Lucio isn't the right pick, but he's a very fun pick. So there's no shame in that. But this is one of those situations where you can get value out of your speed. And so at least understanding that and looking for it, because like, where's your Ramattra right now? I'd say your top priority, the way you can best get value, or most consistently. You know, you can Reddit the backline every single time, but it's way easier to speed your tank and have your tank kill all of them. Like if you're speeding your Ramattra during his ult here, he gets like 2 more at least, ish. That's a overgeneralization, but I'm assuming. Oh my god, you just wall rode into that Reaper. Okay. I don't want to talk about ult tracking quite yet, but I'm just going to mention ult tracking is a thing in which you predict the enemy's ults. I think you probably know, but if you only hit GM, like it's a very GM level concept, a high level concept that's like hard to do. And I don't expect you to do it, especially as a low GM player, until you hit like GM2 or GM1. Then it's an expectation, but just to widen your horizons, if you know that they have Blizzard, if you know that they have Speed, if you know that they have Shatter, if you know that they have Curie, you know, like your kit, you can speed out of each one. And so if you're ready for it and not predicting, but you're just ready for it, then you position in a certain way, you play a certain way, you hold your cooldowns a certain way, you get ready, you tell your team, and then when it comes out, like the May Blizzard, you'll have your amp and you speed everyone out of the Blizzard and you save the game off of that one decision. And it'll only happen once every game, but like, you know, if you save your entire team fight just because you saved speed, that's some carry stuff, and that's, you know. But I say that because the Reaper blossomed in the middle of your team, and I feel like if you amp speed booped him out, your team could have survived. Then again, it is kind of Masters, and sometimes Masters players just kind of zone out, and then they don't walk out of the Reaper ult, or they walk in the same direction that you boop them. I mean, not fully controllable, but like, you can't trust them to be too consistent. Okay. A bit too much Reddit Lucioing, but if you go for these Reddit Lucio plays, the one thing I want to see is you inting harder. I think right now it's just because you just don't know what to do that you're like resorting to these Reddit Lucio plays, because to me your playstyle doesn't seem that risky in the sense that, oh, okay, cool. Rip your far, I guess. But you don't seem to have that like, whoa. Oh, it's for touch. Okay, that risky playstyle where you're like always Reddit Lucioing in the backline, adrenaline junkie, looking 1v1s on the enemy DPS, taking like off angle hard flanks in the backline. Like, yeah. So what I want you to understand is how to get value with your Ramattra here, because Ramattra is a very interesting spam brawl hybrid, in which like right here, okay, you amp healing. I think I don't want to just be a Lucio tips and tricks VOD review, but I'm going to show you some wall riding, like some high level VOD wall riding things that I feel like you're missing. But here, like if you're just playing still with your Ramattra, you're spamming the enemy team, and even though they get the high ground, you guys have a Bastion still, and it's better for you to wait and use your speed for when your Ramatra's ready to go with this Nemesis form, rather than taking this risky play, which I'm not going to say it's inting, because there's a reason why you're over here, and it's because you feel like that maybe you can get more value out of like brawl or dueling and challenging and contesting, but it's only because you just didn't recognize and understand how you can get value with your Ramattra here. And so now you know how you can get value with your Ramattra. You spam until you're able to speed in, because your Reinhardt's like always speed when he wants to swing. kind of the same with your Macho, except it's a very on-off binary switch that's like, it's either on for 10 seconds or off for 10 seconds. And so if you're ready for that on in the 10-second period, you get a lot more value. Okay, so one, we're going to go over mechanics. Seems to me mechanics, rinse and repeat on all the VOD review mechanics, but I'll show you some mechanics that I think you should have. I'll give you some suggestions also. Two, you can't really get to the decision making without the mechanics, but let's think about your tank. Because at the end of the day, you're playing Lucio to speed and not heal. If you're playing Lucio to heal, that's not the most efficient play, even if it's fun. Brigitte is just a better healer if you're only healing and not speeding. Number three, I feel like your beats were pretty good. Let me see. Maybe I'll just like go more in depth on the mechanics. So let me go into the training range real quick and show you some different methods on Lucio that I feel like you're missing. So going into your settings real quick just to make sure, because I'm pretty sure that you have all of these enabled. I'm going to talk about hold to crossfade. Honestly, in my opinion, is underrated, but if you're like already masters, if you're just learning Lucio, I'm going to expose you to this option. Even though a lot of players hate it, it is I love it, and I'll show you why. Allow backwards wall ride should always be on. Wall jump on release is preference. I do it on because it enables me to better think about my decision making rather than like, you know, being that Lucio player that's like jamming his spacebar over and over again. Okay, so one specific thing is tapping walls to make you less predictable. If you can just like tap a wall and hang on to walls like this, where you go back and forth on the same corner, a lot of the times when you're like diving in, like I saw you go in on that enemy McCree and get antied like that, like trying to do that. But yeah, that's because you don't always have to be on a wall. You just have to be nearby, ready for the wall, and using the wall to be predictable. Like on a wall, like this is hard on a wall, you know what I mean? But if you're, for example, on that monkey, when you're trying to boop him, you can still be on that corner, like looking at the monkey, predictable, so then everyone behind you can't shoot you as hard. But then when he's ready to go, you just jump up and boop. Also, I noticed a couple of times in your engagements, there are some times where, okay, let's talk about two different things. The 180 transfer, so if you're shooting someone, let's get a bigger target here. Screw it, the biggest targets. Doing a 180, well, so the idea of you wall ride over them, because there are a couple of times where you're flying over them. Get used to the turning around upside down, and you're shooting, and then you can boot melee at the very end to get the most out of your kit. So right there, so you jump over them, and at the same time turn around while looking down. Let me get back up and then show you the second one. So the second one that I was talking about, how you can fly at a target with and maintain. I got some input lag here, but where you can fly at a target and when they don't know where you are, so but still remain slippery. So when you're at the apex, then you can shoot and aim at their head, and you don't move your mouse at all, so you don't have to reposition. So let me do that again. Where you're like flying in, you're in the air, you wait for the apex of your jump, or like while you're falling, so you're like diving like a torpedo in a straight line, and then you shoot them. And then that way, instead of like, for example, if that's an Ana around the corner, like in the first point that we were looking at, then you can jump around like that instead of like jumping, landing, and then like having to deal with all of this. You just go around, you torpedo at them, and while you're falling, or at the start of the apex of the jump, and then while you're falling, then you can start shooting. Of course, you know, you get like small stuff like that where you're like moving sideways and it's a bit awkward, but generally if you're moving at them and slightly to the side, because you know, if you're moving straight at them, you look like a bot just standing straight in the air like shoot me, but and then that's like the opposite of slippery. And then finally, the last thing I want to talk about is the hold to crossfade. If you're just learning Lucio, this is a very strong option that I feel like is very underrated, because all the pros and all the really good players say don't hold to crossfade because you bait your teammates, because they feel like, oh, we're on heal. But your teammates aren't actively thinking about healing. They're just thinking in those critical moments where it's just like, shit, I need speed. Or like, heal me, Lucio, in which you have your amp or your heal. And then that way you're better able to benefit off of your own heal. Because if you're playing around this corner, let's say, and you're like shooting the enemy, you can speed and then like tap heal when you're out of the corner. And it's less brain power to like keep on hitting shift. And also when you're wall riding, you speed when you attach to the wall and you heal while you're off. Because it's only like a 1 to 2% slowdown in the air if you have your healing on. And if you get this down really well, it's like an extra 30 health. It's like an extra melee that you're able to tank just because you have the skill down. And so whenever you B-hop or attach to a wall, you put your speed back on, and it'll maintain your in-air speed, and you're able to traverse while regenerating health. And that way also you don't get stuck on just one, because sometimes I feel like you were pretty good on it, but you were like pretty attentive on like when you need to swap between heal and speed. But like in team fights where it's just like it's very hard to think about, you're just thinking about shooting mechanics and positioning, like then once it gets muscle memory down, then you'll be like, okay, I'm just doing my thing, still healing, like being slippery, drawing their attention still. My Cassidy needs speed, I'm gonna speed him out and then go back to heal and then just go back to my thing. So that's like one thing to think about. And then yeah, just how to synergize with your tank. And I feel like also you should probably go through this phase early. Just do the Reddit Lucio phase early. It used to be very much more popular, because now it kind of fucking sucks if you're on Lucio and you go for Reddit plays. It is what it is. I used to do a lot, but like go through the Reddit Lucio phase, because you're gonna start taking plays in the backline when your mechanics get better. I recommend a lot of deathmatch on Lucio, but like you're gonna take risky plays in the enemy backline. But why is my screen black? No way. Is all of Overwatch black? Can you... Was my entire stream black? No. Okay, I think it's just OBS not showing the replay because I'm in a game. Figure that out. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna figure that out right now. Lost my train of thought, so hopefully you got something out of this VOD review. Sussy.